Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Lebanon Utility Service Board meeting for Wednesday, August 18th, 2021. Let the record reflect that the meeting was appropriately advertised and that all members are present tonight, less Bill Stoner. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item tonight is the approval of the minutes from the August 4th, 2021 meeting. Everyone had a chance to review those minutes, and if so, any questions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Jim to approve the minutes from August 4th. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next item tonight is the William Street Bridge water main relocation change order. It's an action item, and the man with the most podium time is here tonight, Ryan Ottinger.
Good to be back. I took a couple of weeks off from the podium, so it's good to be back home where I feel more comfortable. This is a water project that was recently completed on William Street Bridge. This is where we had the water main was in the deck of the bridge that was going to be replaced, and we rerouted that water main and bored underneath the creek. As part of that project, there was a little bit of unfinished work that we had a couple options on. We could have let the paving company pave over that, went back at a future date, dug up the brand new pavement, cut and capped the old line, put everything back per city standards, and then patched that pavement. Also, that would have had to been coordinated with the school year because this bridge replacement, we were done during the spring break time, but we put in the contract to be out of the road after spring break was over, so we didn't cause any disruption with school buses. So while we were there, I gave the approval to get that cut and capped since they had the excavation equipment as a 7x7 hole, and I did attach a picture that just kind of shows that it was put back per city standards under our direction, and then when they repaved up to the new bridge, they were able to put all new pavement that we're no longer going to have to go back and dig up and make a correction after the fact. And I do apologize, but of it being retroactive, but like I said, we only had a 7-day window for them to get out of the road before the buses started rolling again. And if you know that intersection, if anybody's ever had any kids go to Central, in the morning and the afternoon, that can get very precarious with kids walking to and from school and the buses on William Street, which is a pretty narrow road at that time. So that is kind of the decision that we made with coordination with my outside crew and with BF&S to make sure that this was needed. You know, it wasn't just an add-on while they were there, and this is something we wanted done. We just omitted it from the original scope of work. So I can hopefully answer any questions that you might have on this change order.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Any questions for Ryan on this particular change order?
I apologize, Neil. This does go over the do not exceed by 5,000, but on the sheet you will see that we are still, from the budgeted amount, still under budget by over $85,000 on the whole project. So the reason I'm coming is because I did go over the do not exceed, and I do want to let the board know that anytime that happens, why we went over that, because that number is the one we're looking to stay under, but the original budget amount in the budget, we did stay under that with the addition of this change order.
And this particular change order is 5,000, Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. If there are no questions, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the change order with TPI Utility for the amount of $5,000.
Second.
Motion made by Jim, seconded by Tim to approve the change order with TPI Utility in the amount of $5,000 for the William Street Bridge change order. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Ryan's still up with the next item, which is the Royal Cleaners clothing contract.
I have quickly learned more in the last 6 months about clothing contracts than I thought was going to be needed in this role. But there's actually a lot of moving pieces and parts with making sure that our crews have the proper equipment, and a lot of that starts with the uniforms. When I looked at uniforms, I looked at a couple different options. The electric side of the utilities has a clothing policy that gives a clothing allowance, and then employees go through Annexter and they can buy Ariat or Carhartt approved clothing, and whatever's within their yearly allowance they can purchase, and then they launder, take care of themselves. On the other side, the water, wastewater departments and IT department, we have a clothing contract with Royal Cleaners, a local dry cleaner, where they provide the uniforms. They do washing and delivery, and I do have, this is what a set of 5 pair of jeans comes back to us after they've been dry cleaned, shrink wrapped. I can promise you when I fold my own jeans, 5 jeans will not come close to the way they return those. So
That's it. What 2 IT employees are?
the IT supervisor and his helper, I don't know.
Is that telecom you were talking about?
I apologize, it is
Thetford
telecom,
and
yes.
Nathan Newell, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I abbreviated it as IT, but yes, it is telecom. It is the 2, Seth and
Okay, thank you.
Nathan, yes. So when we set out to get prices, we looked at the pros and cons of both clothing policies. And then I also talked to the crews of, the pros and cons of what we currently have. Then I talked with the electric crew, some electric crew members. My assistant, Matt Hutton, is on the electric clothing policy. So I got some pros and cons from him. Then we met with Annexter and talked about the ordering process, got the prices for the Carhartts, got the prices for the Ariat clothing from that policy. And then we met with Royal Cleaners and got the current updated prices for Royal Cleaners. The prices are for FR clothing, and I will start out by saying we have some positions that require FR in my groups, some that do not. For comfort purposes, if an employee does want an FR just to be on the safe side, that's why I've priced FR clothing for anyone that wanted it. If they don't, because FR is a much thicker brand and heavier duty, and when it's 95 degrees and you're down in a trench working a water main break, you don't necessarily need FR clothing. And we do also provide the aprons. If you were to get into an electrical panel, we have the safety equipment that you would need, that if you didn't have FR on, you could still put on the proper PE and get into that electrical panel or a possible flammable scenario. But I would never want to deny anyone who felt safer on the job with FR brand clothing. So we did get a price for both, and Royal Cleaners does offer both. And it is per employee, $26.40 a week for FR, and $16.79 a week for regular clothing. And why it's priced per week and not per shirt is upon the new contract, Royal Cleaners comes in, measures everybody for their sizes, and then they order 11 sets of clothing, 11 shirts, 11 pants for every single employee on the contract. And then that way, as you have a week's worth of clothing in the cleaner, you still have plenty of clean clothes to continue a rotation. And then they do pick up and deliver on site. We don't have to go pick up any of the clothing. They bring that to us, pick it up in bins, and in the water, wastewater, there's some clothing I wouldn't want to put in my washer and dryer, so it's a great service to have. And then with FR clothing, there's a certain way that you are to launder those. You can't use fabric dryer sheets because some of that gets into the fibers and can be flammable. So they adhere to the label on any cleaning that they do, whether it's FR or non-FR. So that we did decide on that we think that Royal Cleaners would continue, and that is who we currently use, to continue to be the current provider. Our last contract was a 3-year contract. With a 3-year contract, and there's that extra year is a lot of wear and tear on the clothes. They do patchwork, they do replacements for us, free of charge, but there's sometimes, at this point, we're getting 3 or 4 sets of jeans in for patch or replacement at a time, just because that 3rd year really does take a lot of wear and tear. So that's why I scaled this back to a 2-year contract. And we might want to revisit the options that we have in 2 years just to see where pricing goes, or if things might change as far as the clothing policy, if we want to be more like the electric crew. This also ensures that we're all wearing the same uniform. All my field guys, all my lab guys, same color uniform, Lebanon Utility, decal on one side, their first name on the other, very identifiable. If they have to go to a customer's door, they look through the Ring doorbell, you can see that it is a utilities employee. And I do like the familiarity with the kind of, I call it old school, but just kind of the uniforms that we've had and continue to wear. And so I can take any questions. I know that there was a lot to that. And like I said, I am been very well versed in the cleaning business in the last 6 months.
Hey, Ryan, I don't really have a question. I just want you to share with the board something we discussed, and that I've had previous experience with vendors, and are you happy with their level of service and your experience with them? Because I've had some experiences other places where they don't show up on time, or the uniforms don't get cleaned, or people are not getting their clothes and giving a lot of complaints to management. So just speak to your experience with them over the last couple of years.
Yeah, we are, and that is one of the reasons I met with the crew. Instead of just making this decision kind of arbitrarily, I went to the crew, said, hey, are we good with where we are? Here's some of the options on the board. What do you guys prefer? They overwhelmingly, there was a couple guys who, the younger guys who are the newer employees who didn't really have a lot of experience with it. They were kind of good either way. But the crew members that have had experience with Royal Cleaners, they do pick up within pretty much an hour, the same hour every week. So, and it's also nice if we do have issues, we don't have to mail anything off or take it to Indianapolis or somewhere. We drive right up to Royal Cleaners, and if he's got, we've gotten replacement shirts that he has. They don't have name tags on them all the time, but if you need one, or you need, if it's a newer person, they don't have all their stuff yet, he's got stuff for us. So the local business aspect is a big factor in part of our decision, because Neil and Royal Cleaners is for, he put in here, the continued relationship we have. It's been a really good relationship, and a long time that we've been with Royal Cleaners. I believe he put in here, dating back 50 years is how long that they've been providers for us.
So, I'm not sure if this is a Ryan or a Sandra question. What's our total cost per year for uniforms for Ryan's crew and the telecom? No, either one, I don't know. What's our total cost in purchase and the weekly cleaning? How much is that per year?
So if, for the FR clothing, per employee would be $1,372.80 a year for this contract, and that's with the cleaning, delivery, and everything. For non-FR, it would be $873.08 per year per employee.
900 and what?
873.
873.
And I did put that on the spreadsheet for when we did some cost comparisons. It is on there. And like I said, that is with 11 uniforms in rotation and the cleaning and maintenance of those uniforms.
I was just going to add, currently, we get billed a little over around $3,000 a month. So somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 is what it normally runs. Now, that also includes the mats and stuff for this building. To get a direct answer to your question, and I know, Aaron, you had asked me a budgetary question, which I haven't got to yet, so I'll email you either later tonight or tomorrow. I would just guess, right around like $40,000, but to get to individual level, we would have to pull out all those mats and mops and stuff like that that they also do for us.
And is it that up to $40,000 annual, do we have the budget to cover that this year?
I'll have to look. You had asked me that in the email. I need to go back and look at the budgetary numbers and compare that to the monthly
My
bills.
glance at it shows that we might be haven't budgeted enough funds. If we haven't, I don't have any heartburn about approving this, but next year perhaps we can be a little more accurate in our
Yeah, normally what we
budgeting.
do is we look at the prior 12 months, so we would have budgeted for this year based on the prior 12
Uh-huh.
months with about a 3% increase. And then if we want to look at total uniforms, right now, I'm just talking about Royal Cleaners, but the electric department does something a little bit different than Royal Cleaners. We do an allotment for them, so we would need to add that in to come up with a total budget for you guys. And I can do that and send it to you guys via email if that's okay.
So,
And I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, Aaron. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a question for legal counsel. The contract that makes reference to the Royal Cleaners and Laundry Textile Rental Price List attached herein as Exhibit A, and Exhibit A is not included with what I was given. So does that Exhibit A include let's see, is this, I was given Exhibit A, let me take a moment to look at it.
While you're looking at that,
Okay, and that does include the 2640 per week and the 1679. Good, okay.
So I need clarification here. If we have a contract that we're supporting with Royal Cleaners, it's at $40,000 a year, doesn't that require us to have an RFP process for a vendor?
so I believe that with the under 50, I believe the number is, there was a RFP, not a formal RFP process, but Ryan went out and did get quotes on this initially, if I'm correct.
You can get quotes if it's under 50, but over 50, you need a formal RFP.
Okay.
And the reason there's some discrepancy in the budget is, and the reason why the requested budget amount is not included is the varying amount of employees, because that could change if we have employee retire, or if we hire 3 or 4 new staff, that's going to change the budget amount. And so that's why Sandra and I kind of talked about it back and forth, and that's why we just approved the allotment for a set of clothing per employee, just in case that number would change. But we did reach out to Annexter, and then we had meetings with Ariat and Carhartt based on that, and then Royal Cleaners based on that for pricing.
Okay. I guess my challenge would be that in the future, I don't know how much volume we really have across all of utilities, but there are very, very large, uniform providers, and the more volume you have, the better pricing you get. And I love Neil and I love Royal Cleaners, but if we're not looking outside of our own community, Carhartt and Annixter are not well-known uniform providers. Okay? Unfortunately, and I say this because I'm not real proud of it, I have experience with uniforms and being bought and sold and how you do that. Not in smaller volumes, but in larger volumes. And I just think in the future we can and should think more collectively about all of our businesses together in uniforms. We can break out the cost by business, but all of them together gives us volume. And you get into an RFP process, and I think you're going to get some different types of pricing that could potentially be beneficial to the utilities.
Ron, did you also touch base with Centos informally?
Informally, I had a discussion, and with Centos, the volume pricing and the FR, they kind of implied to me that they would rather it be the basic uniform. Having said that, with only 17 employees. Now, I do need to add to this, I didn't price when you add in rugs, all the other amenities that we have with Royal Cleaners, so we have a couple options. I would have no problem if you want me to reach out.
No, I'm very supportive of where we're at right now. I'm just saying, in the future, we need to think about it, and I want to force vendors to put pen to paper. Neil did a good job here. Neil did it. I want to force others to do that, and I want to think more collectively about our whole of employees.
And I agree, and that's why when we were discussing the length of contract, instead of a 3-year, we wanted a 2, so that if that was something we wanted to revisit, we weren't locked into longer than where we wanted to be.
All right, anything else for Ryan?
One other note, there was since the board packet went out, in addition to Ryan's added Exhibit A, there was a non-substantive change made in Section 5.2 that was the supplier's language.
All right, if there are no other questions or discussion, I would entertain a motion on this item.
I move to approve the clothing contract with the Royal Cleaners with final contract review from legal counsel and approval from General Manager Ed Basquill.
Second.
Motion made by Aaron, seconded by Jim to approve the clothing contract with Royal Cleaners, pending final review from legal counsel and approval from our general manager. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, everybody.
Next item is an action item as well. Our legal counsel, Jeff Jacob, will address our virtual attendance to board meetings.
Yes, thank you. This is was last in front of the board, I guess last meeting, and this was a recommended action from the State Board of Accounts and consistent with Indiana law. This is Resolution 2021-06, a resolution allowing board members to attend board meetings electronically/virtually. Whereas the Lebanon Utility Service Board operates a municipally owned utility known as Lebanon Utilities, and whereas pursuant to Indiana Code 514-1535, or as may be recodified, requiring entities to adopt a written policy to establish procedures for electronic participation of board meetings. Now therefore be it resolved by the board that the utility shall make available technology that allows simultaneous communications for board members and the public to attend and observe meetings. The utility shall require the memoranda prepared for a meeting in which a board member participates by electronic means of communication to state the name of each board member who was physically present at the meeting, participating in the meeting by using electronic means of communication, and was absent from the meeting. Identify the electronic means of communication by which board members participated in the meeting and the public attended and observed the meeting, if applicable. The utility must have at least 50% of members physically present at board meetings. The utility shall declare that a technological failure in electronic means of communication that disrupts or prevents the simultaneous communication between a board member who is not physically present at the meeting and the remainder of the board, or a member of the public who is not present at the meeting, from attending and observing the meeting, if applicable. does not prevent the board from conducting the meeting or affect the validity of an action taken by the board at the meeting if the sum of the board members physically present at the meeting, the board members participating electronically without technological failure satisfies the quorum and voting requirements stated herein. The utility shall require all votes taken by a meeting involving electronic attendance and participation to be taken by roll call vote. The utility shall allow board members attending electronically to participate in final action taken by the board only if persons attending electronically can be seen and heard by all board members in attendance. A board member may not participate electronically in final action to one, adopt a budget, 2, make a reduction in personnel, 3, establish or increase a fee, 4, establish or increase a penalty, or use the board's eminent domain authority. The utility shall not allow an individual board member to electronically attend and participate in more than 50% of the board's meeting in a calendar year unless the member's electronic attendance and participation is due to military service, illness or other medical condition, death of a relative, or an emergency involving actual or threatening injury to persons or property. The utility may not prohibit a board member from attending consecutive meetings by electronic communication. A member may attend 2 consecutive meetings by electronic communication. A member shall physically attend at least 1 meeting between sets of meetings that the member attends by electronic communication, unless the member's absence is due to military service, illness or other medical condition, death of a relative, or an emergency involving actual or threatened injury to persons or property. Adopted by the Lebanon Utility Service Board this blank day of 2021.
Jeff, please, I have a series of questions. Is that okay, Neil?
Please, I'll do my best.
House Enrolled Act number 1437 is the basis for this resolution.
That is correct.
And that was effective upon passage and signed by the governor on April the 20th.
I believe that's correct.
2021. So,
and then there were some additional amendments, I believe, made through July when this was later codified, but I believe that's correct.
okay. So one section of the law reads this way. This section applies only if the governor declares a disaster emergency, number one. Number two, the executive of a political subdivision declares a local disaster emergency. And then, notwithstanding other parts of this chapter, the members of a governing body are not required to be physically present at a meeting until the disaster emergency or local disaster emergency is terminated. The members of a governing body may meet by any means of electronic communication if the following are satisfied. 1, at least a quorum of the members of the governing body participate in the meeting by means of electronic communication or in person. And 2, the public is able to simultaneously attend and observe the meeting. Now, the governor has us under an emergency declaration until August 31st, correct?
Correct.
So theoretically, this meeting falls under this category of virtual meeting category.
Which category? The
emergency declaration.
Correct.
The declaration, the resolution that we're considering, the way things are now, when the emergency declaration is over, currently, without this resolution, no one can meet electronically.
Assuming that the executive emergency order ended August 31st of this year without any action taken, that is correct.
Okay. So what we're doing today is allowing virtual participation outside of an emergency.
Correct.
Okay. Now, I have a question here about this section. The public is able to simultaneously attend and observe the meeting. Now, early in the year, we had entirely virtual meetings. where, and this was before April 21st, where we all met virtually and we had the capacity to see each other face to face most of the time, except Jim. We could hear each other. Could the public also see during these entire virtual meetings everything that was going on?
So speaking to this resolution, the intention would be that they would be able to, that they would have that option. When we had virtual meetings earlier, very early on, I believe that the public could see, they could certainly hear and see. I would have to defer to Mr. Basquiat on that, but I believe when we have done this before, every time, am I correct, Ed?
Yeah,
That
every meeting was broadcast live on YouTube, and they could participate via chat. We had a phone number where they could call in, and we had an email number, email that we had published prior to the meeting where they could have emailed questions. So the public could participate real time, or to be perfectly accurate, maybe a 15% lag time, but they could participate.
That was under the early emergency executive orders. Now, we have revised our process, and when we are going to have an electronic participation meeting, we have pre-registration, so people that want to participate live.
When you say live, electronically or in person?
Electronically live.
Okay.
So immediate electronic participation.
You're talking about the public now?
The public. They register in advance with Danny, and she sends them a link, and we then control that link so that they can participate, where they would either register for an item or they would raise their hand in that virtual electronic forum, and we would then call on them on that, for that item.
Yeah, and we have utilized that at least once. There was the gentleman whose name I cannot remember, who was wanting to do an ACH withdrawal from his bank account to pay our bills, so.
Okay. Now, my next question relates to the resolution at hand and whether we are technologically ready to pass this resolution. The utility shall make available technology that allows simultaneous communications for board members. Now, on July 21, we had a meeting where one board member in the meeting minutes is indicated as attending virtually. However, I was present in person at that July 21 meeting, and I could neither hear nor see that other board member. And anyone from the public that was present, that would there have been anyone from the public present, they also would not have seen or heard that other board member who was attending virtually. So the way the Indiana code is written and the way our resolution, which mirrors the code, is written, if someone is attending virtually, shouldn't we be able to see them and hear them in person and virtually?
Can I say something first? Is we had a technical problem with that meeting, and we had a meeting after that where we'd resolved that issue. It was, technical issues going to come up, so we resolved it so the person could be heard. Now, as far as being seen, that's a little more difficult. That's something the city's looking at as well, because this is their room. I've been in some meetings with the city where we're looking at some upgrades in that regard. But the main thing is that they can participate and be heard, and they can watch it on YouTube, because everything that the public sees, a board member would see. So I don't discount what you're saying on July 21st. I'm just saying, whenever you have a technical thing, a technical glitch can happen.
So you feel confident that after July 21st, we have improved our technological capabilities where we can hear a board member virtually? I mean, I hear a board member in person who is attending virtually.
If I understand your question, yes, I think we've got the audio worked out, but the video is still a problem. There's probably probably some upgrades that need to be done to make sure the video works properly.
So I can't speak to that. One of the things that I know that has been an issue in the past is the participants, the person that's participating remotely, it's their technology on their end. So that has been a problem in some instances that has been difficult. The technology is, I believe, generally available on something as simple as our phones to handle that simultaneous broadcast participation. There's, and I think what Ed's intention has been is to get that technology in place so that, to answer your question directly, is so someone can see the board member participating remote, somebody remote can see the remote participating board member and the board physically present at the same time. Now, that is very much contingent upon that person in the public having the technology to, the platform to do, or the hardware to do that. We can provide the technological platform. They have to be able to access that, have the bandwidth to do it, the camera, et cetera.
When we're having non-emergency meetings, I don't think we're required to provide the public electronic access.
That is correct.
That's only in the emergency section. So my concern is this. Say we have a controversial issue. I haven't seen one in several years, and hopefully we never have one. But say we have 35 people here, and we have an energetic discussion amongst all the board members, 2 of whom are attending virtually. Will the public in the seats be able to hear and hopefully see those 2 virtual board members during this controversial matter?
I know that technology is readily available. I believe Ed's intention is that, yes, that is the way it should be working. That having been said, I think that we will have that capability the way we've discussed it. I haven't seen that happen. I haven't handled that component of it. I know that other municipalities do that quite frequently, and I know that technology is there, and that's been the intention that Ed has overlaid to do that very thing. We also have that savings clause in there. I know your intention is not to have an escape clause in the ordinance. The ordinance does, or the resolution does provide for that, but your intention is to make sure that we are, not that clause is there and that we're technically compliant. You want to make sure that there's open and available means to participate in the meetings.
Yes.
So I believe, based on my discussions with Ed, that's there.
Okay, and I'm pleased to hear that. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. I can, the next board meeting, probably a working session, I'm not ready to approve something yet, ask for approval on something yet. I can give a brief update on where we are looking at the technology to make it better. We're always looking to improve things.
I'm going to make one last comment. I've been sort of, taking all the time available here, and I'll leave the other comments to my other board members. I'm going to make one final comment. I will be voting against this resolution, and the reason why is that the utility shall allow board members attending electronically to participate in final action taken by the board. A board member may not participate electronically in final action to adopt a budget, make a reduction in personnel, establish or increase a fee, rate, or tariff, establish or increase a penalty, or use the board's eminent domain authority. My reservations about virtual attendance are wrapped up in those exceptions, that we do our best job on important matters when we are face-to-face. And I contend that everything we do is an important matter that impacts a rate or tariff. directly and indirectly, whether we are approving a direct rate or tariff increase or decrease or not. Everything we do impacts that. So I am a strong advocate for in-person meetings. I'm also a strong advocate when we have an emergency for virtual meetings. But when we don't have an emergency, I'm a strong advocate for in-person meetings, and that's why I'll be voting against this resolution. And I promise to be quiet the rest of the time.
And that's, Aaron, thank you for your comments. And one comment is that this resolution can certainly be further tailored as we're doing with the credit card resolution that'll be in front of you next. We can certainly tailor this and make it more restrictive should the board desire. That's not the trend that I am seeing statewide through this sort of action. This sort of met the minimum requirements to allow flexibility and convenience to the board.
And you did a good job updating the resolution from last meeting, and I thank you for that.
I think the only thing I would add is I would rather have a board member be able to attend virtually in some capacity when they're out of town than not attend at all. But that's another fine line that we can discuss.
Well, I don't think, I like the way this is codified because internally, as a value set, I agree completely with Aaron. You need to be here, okay? But as the last 18 months have shown us, flexibility is going to be key in just about anything we do. And disruption of lives happen in different ways, and some of it's voluntary and some of it's involuntary. And to have a mechanism for that so someone can participate and fulfill their responsibility, I think is pretty important.
Myself personally, I don't care for virtual meetings. I know we had to do them, but I feel like that I was appointed to this board to be at this meeting face-to-face with everybody and talk over the problems and work them out. And I feel like doing it virtually, we don't do that as much.
It's a last resort, just like masks and all the other things we've had to do with COVID, so.
You know, handling, just one comment, handling some of the COVID issues that businesses are facing, and as we look at numbers over the next, rising numbers, I think we're going to have many more instances where someone what you want to do is encourage participation in things like a meeting. When somebody is not feeling well or borderline or has had an indirect exposure to someone who has tested positive. Or even more globally, if somebody just isn't feeling well but they know that they don't have COVID, people ought to be a little bit more reserved in their attendance of public things. And this isn't necessarily speaking to the board, but I think the intention here, as I've in doing some reading with this, is the intention is to encourage that participation, not just for convenience, but for public health reasons, so people will be a little bit more apt to say, you know what, I'm going to call in on this one or dial in on this one rather than show up. But I completely agree, Jim, with your comments that these are not easy to, and certainly not as effective.
Right, anything else? Any other questions for Jeff or discussion on the virtual attendance action item, Resolution 2021-06? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 2021-06, a resolution allowing board members to attend board meetings electronically / virtually.
I'm going to go ahead and second this motion, but I would like to say that I don't agree with everything in it, but I think the resolution needs to be done.
Motion made by Tim and seconded by Jim to approve the virtual attendance to board meetings resolution number 2021-06. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, motion carries then with a 2-to-1 approval. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, board, for discussion on that item. Next item is the item 7, use and issuance of employee credit cards. This was an item that was tabled from our last meeting, and Jeff and Sandra spoke about it last time, and Sandra's here again to address this. Hey, Sandra.
Good evening. So based on the feedback that we had received at the last meeting, I had worked with Jeff to come up with a little bit better language on the resolution. And what was added was under the number 2, the utility CFO or a utility representative designated in writing by the CFO is authorized to obtain credit cards titled for utility employees upon the request of the department head. And I'm not sure if Jeff needs to read the whole thing again, but we're here tonight to see if that language is satisfactory and if we can get Resolution 2021-07 approved.
Thanks, Sandra. Jeff, I'll just leave it to you whether you want to read it or if you just want to address the specific, I know it was read last time, if you want to address changes that have been made or.
Yeah, it's the board's pleasure. I'm happy to read it again. If that's the board's choice, it is not necessary, as it's been read once before. The change has been to add the following language to paragraph 2, as Sandra noted, or a utility representative designated in writing by the CFO. And going back and sort of replaying that conversation, the intention was to allow flexibility. If Sandra were not available, she could designate a representative to step into her role, so to speak, and allow that sort of duplication of roles, but at the same time to be somewhat restrictive, and that shouldn't be something that's done every day. So that was the language that was added. Happy to answer any other questions, or I'm sure Sandra.
If I recall, I think this had to do with the employee credit cards are collected, stored, secured here in the utility office, and Sandra would check those out per se. Unless Sandra wasn't available, then she could designate a person to do that for her. Is that accurate?
Correct.
I don't think it needs to be read again.
Anyone have any questions on this resolution in general for Jeff or Sandra before we entertain a motion?
Sandra, do you intend to designate, after this resolution, after this resolution is passed, do you intend to immediately designate a backup? Or you plan to just do it when you think you see a need?
So it would more be done on specific need. What we will do upon, if this gets passed, then I'll have to fill out an application, and I will, at that time, designate a couple people that can at least call in, get copies of the bills, because we have trouble with that right now. They'll be able to call in and stop a card or find out why a card's not working. But as far as adding new people, that would be something that I would do, like if I'm going to be gone, and I could do that with a quick email to the company and just say, for the next 3 weeks, this person would be able to issue a card in someone's name.
Right. You mentioned that you might, on the documentation to the bank, indicate more than one person. So should this read, or, instead of saying, or a utility representative designated in writing by the CFO, should it say, or utility representatives?
From an issuance standpoint, if I need somebody to be able to issue cards, I would just designate it out to one employee.
Okay.
From an application standpoint, we will designate a couple people who are allowed to get copies of the bills or are allowed to stop a credit card if they need to or inquire about one. They would not be able to issue one without specific permission.
The distinction being one is a bank process, one is an internal Lebanon Utilities control.
Thank you.
Hey, Sandra, I will add too, since you mentioned adding, removing, maybe restricting cards. A lot of that, as you know, I'm sure is available online now. So a user can do those things via online banking or even apps. So I just encourage you to make it easy on yourself if possible when shopping these cards.
Yeah, and that's the way the process, we're working with one bank right now and everything is online. So that's a process I'll have to step through.
Sure. All right, thank you both for the additional information. Any other questions for Jeff or Sandra on this resolution? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 2021-07, resolution approving the use and issuance of employee credit or procurement cards.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Aaron to approve resolution number 2021-07, approving the use and issuance of employee credit card procurement cards. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks, Sandra. Appreciate it. Next item is the approval of our claims, payrolls, and transfers. Everyone had a chance to review those items, and if so, any questions or discussion? I would entertain a motion, if not.
I move to approve claims payroll transfers dated August 18th, 2021 in the amount of $2,654,710.02 for claims and payroll and $6,884,085.62 for transfers.
Second.
Motion made by Jim, seconded by Tim to approve the claims, payrolls, transfers dated August 18th, 2021. The amount of $2,654,710.02 for the claims and payroll and $6,884,085.62 for transfers. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next item is any other business that the board may have tonight. Anybody else have anything for the board?
I have one item, just as an update for the board. We've talked about this a little bit, the ULIN reimbursement agreement called for completion of the ULIN secondary system by August 10th, and we are now a little over a week past that. Of note, as we may have heard in the working session, there was an outage in ULIN today where I believe, and Jeff would certainly is here and would have to address any other information, but I believe that the contractor damaged part of the old system with the installation of the secondary lines. All reasons that needs to be redone. So I don't think it was a significant resolution of the problem, but we have, Ed and I have met and talked, and we likely are going to, we've got a letter drafted to go to ULIN just reminding them of their contractual obligations to have completed that by August 10th.
Right.
And I just had one item, because I guess bridging off of that, kudos to the team for getting power back in Uline. They had to do some innovative things. It looked pretty dark at about 10 o'clock when we got the call, but they had power back up in 2 hours, so shout out to our team. I think they're powering it from the new system that we put in, so it's a good thing that we got our job done on time and in place. Second thing is I was at a meeting today at Indiana Municipal Power Association and talking with vendors on transformers, and there's a significant lag in transformers. It's also true with our meter suppliers. I'm talking to Ryan Ottinger. One COVID effect we're seeing is as new development comes in, everyone across the country is going to have trouble getting things. There's supply chain problems related to COVID, and I just thought it'd be good to make sure that whoever's aware of that, we're doing everything we can to address the situation, but it's outside our control, it's bigger than us, so.
All right, thank you, guys. Anyone else have anything tonight for the board? Any public comment? Ed, any public comments electronically that you've received?
Yeah, I did have one email from Danny, you have to help me, was it Joyce Douglas?
Yeah.
And she was, she contacted one of our board members about our minutes. We're going to work on getting our minutes, make sure they're posted better online on a more regular basis. She had a complaint about that. She asked for our meeting time today. I thought she might attend today, but she didn't, and she was aware of the times and everything, so.
Good.
Who was the person?
It was Joyce Douglas.
All right, thanks for that, Ed. All right, if there's nothing else from the board or the public, our next meeting is scheduled for September the 8th at 5 p.m. If that's it, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And there's a second.
Motion made by Jim and seconded by Tim and Aaron to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks, everyone. We stand adjourned.
I suppose that means I